The video that you're about to watch is essentially a condensed version of the City Council meeting of November 12th of this year, where we presented our application to the city for the change of uses for our new building. As you'll see in this video, it's about 20 minutes and it's condensed down from a 4-hour meeting, so obviously there are a lot of things that are not shown. But what we've tried to do is we've tried to take little snippets of the meeting that show the argument that the city staff was making against our application, and then the justifications that we had in asking the city council to vote in our favor, which unfortunately they didn't end up doing. Alhamdulillah. But regardless, as you'll see in this video, there's an initial presentation by John Talentino, who works for the city, and then city manager Michelle Crandall making arguments against our application. And then you'll see the responses that came from us, both board members of NUR as well as the attorneys that we hired in the application process. And so hopefully by watching this 20-minute video, you'll start to get an idea of where the issues of contention were and why we feel that our application was fully justified and that we were honestly mistreated by the city staff and by the city council in having our application rejected. So please go ahead and watch this video. Hopefully you'll find it beneficial.
This is the comprehensive plan that was adopted last year, and it references for this site, recommends mixed-use centers around premium office sites. So it further says that it references two sites, this site, the former BMW Financial Services building, and the Verizon building, which is south of this along the freeway also. Basically says since these sites are about a mile apart, they could be transformed into distinct mixed-use nodes or neighborhood centers that provide amenities to nearby workers and residents.
That priority is that this corridor is a primary economic development driver for the city, providing key employment locations with numerous high-paying jobs that in turn translate into strong income tax revenue for our city.
I want to start by saying that, as I will show you in this presentation, as my clients will show you here tonight, what they have presented, the plan that they have presented meets Ms. Crandall's interpretation of the Hilliard City Comp Plan and will maximize tax revenue for that site. I will submit to you that in actuality, what the city proposes undermines the goal of the Hilliard City Comp Plan and is likely to minimize tax revenue off of that site. I am proud to represent my client, Britton Parkway Holding Incorporated, an extension of the Noor Islamic Cultural Center.
Well, Mr. Talentino brushed over it. In fact, as proposed, this is a mixed-use neighborhood center. Exactly what this community and this council said in the comprehensive plan that it wanted for that site. Furthermore, you have Skip Weiler with over 40 years of real estate development experience in this region telling you this proposal by this applicant aligns very well with the comprehensive plan and will foster activity on this site. Mr. Weiler also tells you that what city staff and the Planning and Zoning Commission have recommended to you, in fact, instead, is financially infeasible.
It's another piece of misinformation that we've heard. They just vacated that building a year ago. We know that this site is still viable for companies looking for this type of highway frontage in Central Ohio, both as a standalone building as it sits today and as a redeveloped mixed-use site.
I guess next year will be my 40th year in real estate, so all in Central Ohio. Not that I know a lot, but I've been around for a long time. And we've developed property and do a lot of brokerage. So I represent a lot of buyers and sellers and tenants and landlords. So I'm not going to tell you guys anything you don't know about the office market. They'd love to put a tenant in that office building. It's 226,000 square feet. It's a huge building. They'd love to fill that up. There aren't any 220,000 square foot tenants unless it's the state or some, basically, or Amazon. They're not building office buildings. So just being realistic, look at it all around 270 in Dublin, Hilliard, really all the way to Westerville. There's so much empty office space, and there's more coming on the market.
Based on CoStar's data, if you take a mile radius of about 15 miles from Britton Parkway, there's 5.7 million square feet of office space, most of which starts at 50,000 square feet floor plates. 50,000 per floor plate. That's 5.7 million square feet, sitting empty as of today. According to the recent publications in the Business First, and I quote, there are nearly 3 million square feet of office conversions underway in Central Ohio, part of a growing national trend to stem losses from post-pandemic work from home policies. CBRE Columbus office recently released a report that found 1.1 million square feet of office space currently is being converted, and an additional 1.7 million square feet is being planned for conversion. 57% of these conversions are turning office space into mixed use. 22% are turning office space into educational use.
You got the Verizon building sitting empty. You got the Dublin Metro place. They're trying to figure out what they're going to do up there. You've got, you brought up in P&Z the battery 4C. And when you went in there, you look at 4C, and it's a wide open warehouse. And I want to remind everybody, it was a Highlights building that was sat empty for years before 4C came along. So you have an applicant that's bringing mixed use, but not the mixed use you wanted. And I want to highlight this because, folks, I think we have to really address this. The reason is because you're not bringing the city enough tax revenue.
I will note all quotes from here come directly from the comprehensive plan. This does meet the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan recognizes that sites such as 5550 Britton Parkway, quote, are not competitive for single tenants, close quote.
Keep in mind, this building has been vacant since March 23, and everybody knows the city was aware that BMW is vacating much earlier than that. Understanding that, city has known already about this building going vacant years ahead. And Mr. and Mrs. Cordell, sorry to say, but you referencing that building was empty for a year. It's been more than a year. You guys were well aware that it was going empty much earlier than March 2023. And those efforts by the city, the ownership, the brokerage, were in no avail to lease 1 inch of that building.
Now, one might ask the question, why would we be so bold as to think that we could do this when the previous owner gave up trying to find a tenant and defaulted on their $26 million loan? Why did they hightail it out of town and leave this building there to go up for auction? And City Manager Crandall makes it sound like it's such an easy thing to fill the building and find a new tenant. It's only been empty for a year, but obviously the city knew well before that BMW was vacating, as did the owner of the building. And yet the owner of the building left this multi-million-dollar structure and hightailed it out of here. And, you know, if it was that easy to find a tenant, you would think they would have done so.
I wish the applicant or the representative would have reached out to the city staff before purchasing this building. We could have helped them understand the importance of this building and site as a premium office location.
So what is the standard? Right now, the standard's what staff says to the applicant. And oh, by the way, if you want to be an applicant, come before you buy the property so we can tell you if you can use it for what you want. That's what you've said to the community tonight. And that's wrong. That is absolutely, in my heart and soul, wrong.
While City Manager Crandall took issue that they did not come and talk to the city prior to their purchase, there, of course, is no requirement that they do so. What they have done since then is absolutely try to accommodate any of the city's legitimate concerns, and those efforts have been rebuffed.
Instead of reviewing BPH's zoning application on the merits, the city administration has taken this application and replaced the requested PUD amendment with what it subjectively believes the uses should be on that site. The city has usurped the role of a private property owner, asserted itself as developer of my client's private property, and is attempting to voice its own subjective view of how that private property should be used and operated to complete exclusion of BPH's rights to operate its property as it see fits.
Now, of course, our property at 5550 Britton Parkway is the reason that we're here tonight, and that's also critical to our long-term strategy of serving our growing community. Our original intention behind purchasing the Britton building was, from the beginning, to use a small portion of the building for community activities and religious worship as a replacement for our plan previously to have expansion of the Wilcox Road location, and then to revitalize the rest of that empty building, filling it with businesses so that it would be a sustainable investment for our community. City staff act as though a community center just doesn't fit in an office building, because that use does not fit their subjective desires for this site and what they think should be in it. The city staff apparently believes that they are more skilled developers and better judges of how our private property should be used than us, the actual owners of the property. Why is the city so opposed to us having this community center, this space to gather, to have parties, lectures, Sunday school classes, interfaith activities, and yes, to pray? Why is the city objecting to this simple use, when all of the other uses we are bringing in, and in fact that community center will help us bring in, will generate significantly more income than is being produced now in a dead and dormant building? Why is the city staff sending this community down a road of conflict and division for 9% of a vacant office building? The unfortunate reality is that we feel we are being treated differently because of who we are, and that any other developer who proposed this project would not have been treated as we have been.
And then including like religious uses, to me, they have a right to have office and to use space as well. And I know when they went on Wilcox Road, there was a lot of fear in the community and a lot of negativity, and it ended up being great for the community. And forget religion, it's a great economic driver. And so as a business person, that's good for me and my properties around there, my clients' properties. And so the more vibrant you make this thing, the better it's going to be.
The First Amendment protects the free expression of religion, which the staff, with its recommendations to you tonight, is explicitly asking you to reject space for worship and prayer, though permitted in a PUD-zoned area. And finally, the Federal Religious Land Use Act, RLUPA. It protects religious institutions, such as the property owner here, from burdensome or discriminatory zoning practices. As I said, I've been doing this for 20-some years. I have never seen a staff report and a planning commission recommendation like this. Again, to do anything other than accept this applicant's proposal needlessly exposes the city to damages, to attorney's fees under those federal laws meant to protect people such as this. You can spare the city that. You can spare its citizens and its taxpayers that.
And in your opinion, staff has opposed the community center?
Yes, we have put it in the application from day one. It's been stricken out every time we add it back in. So from day one, it's been the application, and you can go look through the sequence of applications we submitted. It's been in there from day one.
My last question is around the proposal from the applicant and their feelings that the city, they've stated very clearly tonight that the city, from their perspective, has opposed the community center. Is that accurate? And if so, why?
The community center, which, as they brought it forward, would not be supportive of that office use.
I understand it's a very serious consideration for the city, to maximize our tax dollars, but I also realize that community wealth is not just measured in dollars. It's measured in actually it's measured in what we do for our people. And this is important, I think, for our city to we say we're welcoming, and I think that we need to consider this as one of the ways that we welcome our community.
But what we've done is we've created arbitrary standards within there to give the administrative state the ability to try to dictate what the citizens of the community have to bring in tax revenue to be able to develop their own property. That's so backwards to me, it's unbelievable. And I warned the community last fall with Save Hilliard that this is where we were headed, because our standard for the comp plan was how much income tax or tax revenue a piece of property was bringing to the community, and not what was so eloquently said by Councilwoman Vermillion. What and how does it best serve our community?
I understand the fiduciary responsibility here, I really do. But going back to something similar to what Ms. Vermillion said, we have to be prepared to invest in the intangible aspects, you know, that you can't put a number next to it. About all the things that people spoke about today, of what the goodness that this plan, this vision, this community center can bring to not only the Norr community, but you know, Hilliard at large and Central Ohio as well.
I do want to give one example to show how this city has treated different people differently. This city donated $1 million to the YMCA to build a community center, community-type facility. For 9 years and 11 months, there was a worship service every Sunday in that building. I know it because I went there, I listened to that music. It was Movement Church. They still have a prayer center in there. It is a Christian organization. These folks who are Muslim are asking for the same thing, and you're not giving it to them. There's absolutely no legal reason whatsoever that the city can point to deny BPH's application.
I live and work here in Hilliard. I've lived in Darby Glen for over 20 years. I've raised 4 children here and have seen lots of development in that time. I served as president of the Darby Glen Civic Association for a few years and worked with the city on several issues during that time. I come tonight to express disappointment with the city leaders on the rejection of the proposal for the old BMW building and ask for the approval tonight of the changes to the planned unit development. As a resident, I do not want to see vacant buildings. This building has sat vacant for quite a while now, as Mr. Suleiman alluded to. We now have a well-respected and well-represented local faith community that wants to take on this empty building and use it for the betterment of the citizens of our city and the surrounding areas. We have someone willing to take on this building for a good cause. Let them do it.
So, and this is from City Manager Crandall, is one of the primary reasons for denial or for adjustment of the proposed request of the applicant simply because of the revenue not being sufficient?
As I stated previously, this is important for economic development and income generating, and that's why the current zoning is for office, which we, as I mentioned before, we expanded those employment uses to the others that we see within Central Ohio and within Hilliard as viable.
One of your staff members said, "We do not want a school here." And when asked why, the answer was, because payroll taxes. And I can paraphrase, maybe payroll taxes, maybe it doesn't pay high-paying jobs for schools. We know that. These are not high-tech paying jobs. So I ask you, how is a teacher's salary of $40,000 to $50,000 compared to the salary of the warehouse employee in projects that you, the city, is approving up and down I-270? Is the warehouse employee's salary $40,000, or some of them are actually less?
This income tax revenue generation is still more than that thrown off by the warehouse and light industrial and flex employment space that this city has been approving ad nauseum around the city.
I appreciate the community plan, I really do. But City Manager Crandall's pointing to tax generation and mixed-use development on prime 270 frontage falls flat. when just one plot down from here, you allowed a giant Amazon data center to be built. And I might add that you also sold out to Amazon near my neighborhood on another large property facing 270.
I've got some questions for staff, and my questions are more centered on how we got here. And I've expressed publicly my concern about the process and how the applicant was treated.
I want to pause here to give council the right history of the application and address the absurd notion that the city has been compromising. As a former member of the Board of Zoning Appeals and City Council, I am extremely and very concerned with how BPH has been treated with its straightforward amendment request. Rather than proceeding on BPH's zoning application as set forth in the manager's report to council, the application before council tonight is significantly different than what BPH seeks to do with its own property. BPH's application has been replaced with a new version that is based on city staff's and the Planning and Zoning Commission's subjective desires. Never in my experience, serving and working on behalf of the city, have I seen an applicant treated in this manner. Moreover, never in my time as a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals and City Council has this city dictated to a private property owner how it may use this building on a floor-by-floor basis. Nor can I find such an event to occur in this city since I have left public service.
Regarding the process, it was obvious from our initial meetings with the staff and the city that they would not be collaborating in good faith, and I hate to say this. Any representation by staff or the administration that they were bargaining in good faith is nothing more than self-service. In our first meeting, a member of your staff said clearly, and I quote, we would be willing to wait for 5 more years until the office market comes back.
If you deny this application tonight, or if you prove staff's new and reinvented development, what staff would like to see on this site, rather than what the private property owner actually wants, rather than what city code actually otherwise allows, and rather than what the actual real estate market will bear, then you, as members of council, will be needlessly subjecting this city, your constituents, and its taxpayers to liability for substantial damages and attorney's fees. Federal civil rights laws exist for situations just such as this.
Ms. Vermillion?
Yes.
Mr. Betts?
Yes.
Ms. Cole?
I'm a no.
Vice President Teeter?
No.
Mr. Carrier? Ms. Hale?
No.
President Catone?
No.
Failed 4-3.
It's either going to be voted
You're driving us
on
to
or
litigation, that's what you're
withdrawn.
doing. I'm sorry. You're gonna drive us to litigation. We don't wanna sue the city, but that's what you're driving us to.